Hello and welcome back again for this visit of Off the Shelf Book Talk with Book Lovers. I'm Elizabeth Nelson, here as always with Miss Kay Johnson. And Kay, what have you been reading this time?
Well, Betsy, you know, we've talked before about that Thursday Murder Club and the new book by Richard Osman, the second, The Man Who Died Twice.
Yes.
And those books have been in the bestseller list. And as much as I like the first one, I really like the second one better.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so if you're not familiar with the books, the premise is it's a group of seniors, citizens, who live in a senior complex.
Yes.
And they're all people who have law enforcement backgrounds.
Well, Joyce was a nurse.
Oh, right. Okay.
Ibrahim is a retired psychologist or therapist.
Yes.
Ron was a one of the PMs or whatever they are in Britain. So he was like a senator, I think, or something in our terms. And then Elizabeth is the spy.
Spy.
Yes.
And is there anybody else?
Those are the main four, and then there are two police detectives.
Right, that they hook
talk
up
to.
with that become...
That are their friends, but that's the main little group.
There were two people, though, who died, right, in the first book?
In the first book, there are two murders, yes. And
No, but I'm thinking there were more in their group.
There were some other outlying friends of theirs, that they talked about. But
Okay.
the four of them are the main group.
Okay, so they gather once a week on Thursdays and look at cold cases.
Yes, they look at cold cases and try to decide what was missed and if they can solve them.
And lo and behold, they end up getting a real murder in their community.
Yes.
And a second murder in their community.
Yes.
And so then they, in the process of solving it, they hook up with the real police.
Yes.
And so they become sort of a unit.
Yes. The Thursday Murder Club's little group.
And which takes you into the second book, which continues the group.
Yes.
And it's actually, I think it's I like the story better in the second book.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth sort of has a bigger role, I think, doesn't she? Or is it about...
Yeah. It's Elizabeth's ex-husband shows up.
Yes, that's
and
right.
And
he's
involved
spy.
in a scandal of some missing diamonds from a money launderer.
$20 million worth of diamonds.
Yes, and the thing I love about these books is I think the four main characters are just so funny. Like Joyce signs up for Instagram, which is totally fine, but then the name she picks is she doesn't realize that it has kind of an off-color meaning. So she's getting all these private messages and she doesn't know how to do anything with them, which is so funny. And then they're just, and it's fun to see like how they figure things out, which is interesting. And then Joyce is she's always baking.
Yes.
Making some kind of dessert. And
yes.
They're just kind of a funny group.
Well, and like we've talked before, Elizabeth's husband has dementia or Alzheimer's. And what was he in his real life?
I'm not sure. I don't remember what Stefan's job was, but I do think it's funny because he's not always tracking right, and you don't always know, because of the Alzheimer's, you don't know if he's actually playing dumb. Like, does he know that there were men in his apartment trying to kill Elizabeth? Or did he really think that his wife was somebody else? So it's trying to figure out because, he plays, in the books, he's playing chess with Bogdan, which is like the handyman. And he's always hinting that he knows that Bogdan has done something from the first book. But he never comes out quite straight and just says, I know you did this. And so they never know, like, does he actually know what's going on, or is he just completely crazy still? Like, he's just funny.
I think he is because so often he'll say, "Go Elizabeth," or "Boy, I bet on Elizabeth," and like you said, you're not sure if he knows what's going on, or if it's just some remnant from some time
But I do really like them. They're just kind of a likable group.
But they play for keeps.
They do. They play. They are serious.
I thought it was a great way they dealt with the guy who interacted with Abraham.
Yes. Yep. They will take care of their own. Which
Yes,
is,
yeah. Boy, they play for keeps.
I'd rather be their friends than their enemy.
Oh, and I think the police agree with that, because I think they always look at Elizabeth sort of out of the corner of their eye on certain, because Elizabeth does not care.
Nope. She's just going to do what she wants to do, or what she feels is right, which hopefully is the right thing. So, but yeah, no, they're fun books. So the first one is Thursday Murder Club, and the second one is The Man Who Died Twice.
Yeah.
And there is a third one coming out this fall, so that one I'm excited about.
I am really excited about it, and I was just going to look up and see what the name was, because I sent it to you.
You did.
And I thought that you would be excited about it, because we get excited about books.
Always excited. You can't help but not be excited about books.
Yeah, I agree, because, well, and the great thing is there's so many that there's something always to look forward to.
Yep. It was funny. There was somebody, was it Barnes & Noble on their Instagram account? They do because most books their publication date is a Tuesday. New books tend to come out on Tuesdays. And so they were doing posts of all the new books coming out, and it was just like this constant, it was like a 15, 20 minute of just these slides of books that were all released. And it's just, it's one of those things with all the books that are coming out now, you're never going to have a chance to read everything ever written.
No.
There wasn't one time in history, many, many, many years ago, where you could be someone who had read every book ever written.
Well, you had to be rich way back when, because of the fact that books are rare and expensive.
Yeah.
And, the new book is called The Bullet That Missed by Richard Osman, and it is expected to come out, I believe, September 22nd.
Yay.
And stuff. So, if you haven't read the first two, you've got plenty of time to do it.
Yes.
So what else have you been reading, Elizabeth?
Well, I read, kind of sticking with the mystery theme, I read a book by Simone St. James. And if you're not, and she did, she's kind of they tend to be kind of true crime based books, in the world, the people are drawn to some kind of crime that has happened, but there's always some kind of a supernatural element to her books. So there's one, the first one I think is called The Sundown Motel. I've talked about that one on here before, and that's a girl whose her aunt went missing. And so she comes back to stay and work at the hotel, and stuff is not okay at the hotel. And
never is.
So, but I read The Book of Cold Cases, and this is about the main character was, when she was a little child, there was an attempted kidnapping of her that she escaped from. And ever since then, she's kind of obsessed with true crime, and so she runs this true crime website, at home, called The Book of Cold Cases. And she does that in the evening, and during the daytime, she's a receptionist at a dental office. And one day when she's working, this lady comes in who they believe is a killer who got off. She got acquitted because there was no evidence. So, they strike up a conversation, and she agrees to give an interview to our main character, and then so things go on there as they begin to talk about, and all of her books kind of go back and forth between when everything was happening and then modern days until you get caught up with what happened. And so it was interesting to see, it's always interesting to see what happened with the crime and how it occurred. But Simone St. James, I really like her books. I also read The Broken Girls, which is also by her, which is the main character, Fee, her sister was murdered by her boyfriend, and the boyfriend went to jail. And it was on the grounds of this old girls' school that is bad. People are sure is haunted, and kids were always trying to break into. And of course, somebody buys the school and is going to fix it up. and she wants to find out why. And on the first day they find a body in the well. And so then it goes back and forward between what was going on with this group of girls that were at the school and how it affects what happened later. So, and again, her books are great. Like I said, there's usually some kind of a supernatural element, whether there are ghosts or usually there are ghosts and strange things happening, but she has a really good way of writing, and the books go quick and you don't really want to put them down. And I like them because her books are always standalone. So it's not like you're going to get left on a
high note, or a low note.
On a cliffhanger where you're going, okay, now I got to wait another year and a half for the next book. What's going to happen here? But
there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, but I really like her books. So give her a try if you're interested. Excuse me, if you're interested. What else, Kay? What have you been reading?
Well, I am obsessed with English murder mysteries that take place during a weekend.
A weekend in the country.
Yeah, that's really what it is. And so I've been researching these, and three that popped up are by Georgette Heyer, and they were written in the 30s.
Okay.
And the first one was Footsteps in the Dark.
Okay.
And it's actually really good. It's about a brother and two sisters who inherit a house, a haunted house.
Of course, it's haunted.
And,
it's got to be haunted.
It doesn't have any electricity, and it's in the country, and I guess there's neighbors nearby, but they decide they're going to live there. So one of the sisters is married, so it's that couple, the brother, the other sister. So there's four, their aunt, and then their housekeeper and her husband. So, the last people that rented the house had a 3-year lease and left after the first year because it was haunted. And so this crew decides, no, we're not, someone wanted to buy it, but they decide, nope, our uncle owned it, we're going to keep it, we're going to live here, and all will be well. And of course, the ghost that supposedly haunts it is known as the monk. He wears this outfit and glowing eyes and long arms.
Oh, goodness.
And so they discover all these hidden passageways, and they start disappearing because they get in and they can't get out. And and then there's some neighbors, and I thought it was a remarkably good book considering the age of the book. Because sometimes when they're old, they're too old.
Okay, yeah.
But this one was fun. And then second one I finished was Death in the Stocks. And these are standalones.
Okay.
So, but in this one, a fellow who was dressed in his evening tuxedo was found with his feet in a pair of stocks in the central park in this town.
Okay.
And so initially they thought he was drunk. And then the officer who's trying to wake him up discovers there's blood all over his hands because the fellow was stabbed in the back.
Oh, okay.
And so they have to try and figure out who did it. And this fellow had a brother who disappeared and died in South America. And then he has a half-sister and a half-brother. And he, of course, is the oldest of this crew, so he has control of the money. And this brother and sister are just so crazy. Their dialogue is so fast, and it just goes all over the place. So you really have to pay attention when you're reading. But it's so well written, and I just thought to even be able to write that, you would have to be so good. And so that one was really good. The next one is They Found Him Dead. And I haven't read that one yet.
They found him dead.
But I really recommend those. I think you can get them at the library,
Okay.
Georgette Heyer. She's written, well, obviously she's long gone, but she's written 50, 60 books in her career.
Oh, cool.
And she did a lot of Regency romances and things, but and the mysteries too. So if you look under Country House Murders,
Okay.
her books will come up.
Okay.
So what else have you read?
Well, if we're sticking with the country house theme, I read a book by Catherine Ray, and it's Raey. Ray is her last name. And it's called The Austin Escape.
Ooh, is it
so,
good?
Yes. And so the main character, she works for a tech company in Texas. And there's been some changes with the structure, and she just really hates her boss. And she's just kind of burnt out about it. And a friend of hers from growing up reaches out to her, and her friend Isabel is a Austin scholar who's a doctoral student writing her final thesis, and as part of her research, she wants to go to Bath for 2 weeks and stay at a country manor. And at this place, you dress up in the period and live as though you are the characters from Jane Austen. And so they get there, and there are other people staying with them, and so they're all getting to know each other and getting along. And the next day, they're going to wake up, and they're all going to dress up in, their Edwardian costumes, and everybody's picked a character from the books. And well, we run into a little issue because Isabel has woken up and believes that she is in Jane Austen's books, and that all of the characters that she knows from Jane Austen are people around her. So
oh, that's an interesting twist.
Yes. So then, so it follows, and in the books, apparently this had happened once before when they were younger. Like she had some kind of a flip back to some other. I don't know. It's like she has like a mental breakdown, basically, is what happened. And so they're trying to get her to snap back out of it and figure out what's happening while they're here. So they're juggling what could be happening and what is. And of course, there's always love interests that are popping up. And so it was just, again, a really quick read, standalone. This author, it looked like she has a bunch of books that are somehow connected to some of those. Like there's one where the character is Mr. Knightley, which is another Austen character. And then there's a book called Lizzie and Jane, which is about the girl, the Pride and Prejudice, Elizabeth Bennet and Jane Bennet. And there's a couple others as well with some of the Bronte characters. So I've only read 2 of hers, but they read well. They're fun, lighthearted.
You like Jane Austen, don't you?
I do, yes. I haven't read all of Austen. I read most of Austen, but you have to be in a certain mood to read Jane Austen sometimes. So, but it was really good, and I thought it was a cute book, and I would read it again. So that I really liked. And then another lighter one I read was by Sarah Wilson. It was called The Seat Filler. And this book, the main character lives in LA, and she has a like a dog grooming business. So she goes from people's places to take care of their dogs. And her best friend's mother-in-law owns a seat filler company. So a seat filler, for people who don't know, when you have award ceremonies like the Emmys or the Golden Globes or the Oscars, when you're on camera, they don't want there to be any seats empty when they pan the crowd at those shows. So like if, Jennifer Aniston is supposed to be there and she's backstage to give an award, there is somebody who is paid to sit in her spot. So when they pan over the crowd, all the seats are full. And so she, to help out her friend, is working as a seat filler and goes to sit down in a seat, and some snotty actor is rude to her. Turns out to be her favorite actor. But of course, because he's been snooty and rude, she informs him that she has no idea who he is. Which then, of course, intrigues him, and he wants to find out more about her and spend time with her, which then sets off this whole rom-com of the girl with the dog grooming business and the rich and wealthy actor. But it was just a cute and a lighthearted story, and some other little plot lines that are tied in there throughout. But it was just kind of, I got it on Kindle Unlimited, and it was just kind of an easy, really fluff story to read. You didn't have to get too far into it, or no plot twists that were too scary or too like, where did that come from in there. But I really liked it, and the characters were sweet, so that was nice. What else have you been reading, Miss Kay?
Have you read Isaac Storm by Eric Larson?
No, I don't believe I have.
It's about the hurricane that hit Galveston.
No, that one I have not read by him.
Like 1900.
Okay.
And it's you know, in its typical fashion, it's a great read that's based on a true story. And I liked it because I like storm books, for starters. And this one, of course, I mean, it's always about human hubris. And, you know, Galveston at that time was competing against Houston to be the largest city, coastal city in Texas. And they were actually pulling ahead. And they were prosperous. They had beautiful homes, wide streets. And up to that point, they hadn't been hit by a major hurricane. And so in the midst of all this, the U.S. Weather Service is starting to develop. And there's a group of autocrats who run it, and they end up not wanting to listen to anyone else. So they, of course, do not want to hear about the weather reporters in Cuba who are telling them there's a storm coming. And then they tighten the control in Washington, and nobody can say it's a hurricane, you know, and there's all sorts of... So as the storm is ramping up, you know, people there in Galveston are getting nervous because they're seeing things, but in the end, like 6,000 people died, but they think it was a lot more because a lot of bodies were never found. And buildings were leveled. People, the Weather Bureau said to stay in your homes, and the homes are flattened by waves, and it was sort of a bad to worse. And then, of course, after the storm, you know, there were all these bodies that, you know, they had to deal with, and all this sort of stuff. So he tells a very compelling story, and so I read that one by Eric Larson, and then I reread the one about The Splendid and the Vile, about the Churchill family. And that was during the Blitz, World War II. And that one's really good. I just really like that book a lot. And so...
I thought that he did In the Garden of the Beasts, which is the last American ambassador to Germany before Hitler came to power. And I thought that was interesting, too. Just talking about that family and what they all went through. And
I think he's interesting because he really gives you sort of a grassroots look at an issue versus the historical perspective. You get a better sense of what really happened. Like in The Splendid and the Vile, you really feel the Blitz. You know, because Churchill's out there walking the streets, and the king is walking the streets, and
well, not only that too, but the fact the like firsthand accounts that he chooses, like there were people that were keeping journals at that time, lifestyle journals, and so he could use all of them to kind of piece together what was happening too. That was interesting. I thought.
That was really interesting. So there's, on another note, which I have not read, but I have downloaded because I want to, is there's a new book series by S.J. Bennett that has Queen Elizabeth as a protagonist.
Interesting.
She is a solver of mysteries. And I think...
Which Queen Elizabeth? We got two
current.
of them. Okay.
Our current Queen Elizabeth.
Because there is a series, I'd have to look up the author, and I'll do it maybe before the next episode, where it's Elizabeth I before she goes to power, and she's the one solving mysteries.
Oh, no, this is our present Elizabeth, and one of them is called The Windsor Knot. And I downloaded the second one too, but I can't find it now.
They always hide when you need them, or when you try to recall what book it was.
But I thought those looked interesting, so I hope to be able to report on them the next time we gather. Yeah, here's the Thursday Mystery Club.
Yep, they're always good.
Yeah, because I knew I had it and stuff. So
well, on that note, we are done for this time.
Wow.
So
that went fast.
It does. It always goes fast when you talk about books. You can talk about them forever. But we are going to say goodbye for this time. So if you have any books that you want us to read or to talk about, please reach out to us on Facebook or on our email, offtheshelfbooktalk@gmail.com, and we will see you next time. Thanks.